Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast. On today's show, I'm going to be talking to myself, and of course, with you, about the massive changes that Google has made in the compensation model for agencies serving automotive retail dealers. And this change, I think, is a positive change for Google and its brand reputation, and long-term for the quality of results that dealers will get from their Google ad dollars. However, these changes have a huge impact on the agencies that are currently in OEM co-op programs, and I'm sure that Google has done the math, but it will surely change the relationship that Google has with agencies. Some might even say that Google is cutting the cord with most of those agencies to be able to stand on their own based on their own innovation and not through bonuses provided by Google. In order for you to understand why this is a big story and worth talking about, you have to go back in time. In the year 2000, the fall of 2000, Google introduced Google AdWords. At that time, most dealers were spending their advertising dollars on radio and television and cable, direct mail, and newspaper. And of course, this new method of advertising in Google search in its early days seemed very, very interesting to dealers. They would buy keywords, and those keywords were for people who were shopping and interested in the cars that they sold. Google would show an ad, and the ad would be free unless someone clicked on the ad, and the dealer would be charged. Maybe back then it was 10 cents or 15 cents or 5 cents or 25 cents, but it was super reasonable for a dealer to get some amazing results back in the year 2000, 2001, 2002. Also, at this time, we have to set the historical context, is that OEMs were not co-opting Google advertising. They were co-opting other forms of advertising, but the OEMs themselves did not see the true value of dealers at Tier 3 advertising on Google. You see, the co-op program in general, if you look back, was designed to get dealers to change behavior. And early on, the OEMs did not see the need for Google to be a critical part of a dealer's marketing budget. As Google lobbied the OEMs and showed them results from their franchise dealers, of course, the OEMs realized that they needed to encourage their dealers to start investing in online marketing. Google also created a dedicated automotive team to go after the largest agencies, to speak at conferences, and to be advocates of dealers investing in Google advertising. Peter Leto was one of the first people I remember who were attending dealer conferences, really leaning in. He attended the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference a number of years ago. And of course, this May, we'll have our 11th annual Digital Marketing Strategies Conference, May 17th, 18th, 19th in Napa. But Google started this team to go to the agencies and basically say, listen, move some of the dealers' advertising dollars over to Google. Eventually, Google realized that with the right lobbying of the OEMs, by placing dedicated Google employees at the largest OEMs' sites, and by encouraging the largest agencies, they could get a large portion of a dealer's marketing budget and the automotive industry's advertising budget. In order to sweeten the pot, Google approached their largest agency partners in automotive and created a bonus or incentive system to hit certain sales objectives. Now, this is nothing different than any other business or industry in which you want to encourage a change in behavior, just like the OEMs. When they wanted dealers to focus on reviews, they co-opt reputation management platforms. And so Google sat down with a select group of agencies and said, hey, if you're able to increase quarter over quarter your spend with dealers, maybe that quarter over quarter increase was 50%. I want you to increase the dealer's spend in Google 50% every quarter. And if you do this, we will give you a bonus. Now, for the largest agencies, and you know who they would be, right? So CDK and dealer.com. And you know that companies like Haystack were one of the early kind of darlings of pay-per-click tech. Today, you have Dealer Teamwork, CF Search Marketing, you have L2T Media. The list goes on. But if you look at most OEM programs, there's about a dozen to 24 companies that are laser focused in what I call high volume paid search. And the reason why these companies were aggressively going after dealers is because they had an incentive that if they grew their accounts, if they got dealers to spend more of their budget on Google search, they would get an increasingly larger bonus. Now, these bonuses, according to people I trust in the industry, were not designed just for the agency to put that money in their pocket. That bonus money was to encourage the agency to develop their technology, to use the Google API, to elevate the digital strategies. Basically, Google said, look, reinvest this money in your business, get better, hire the right people, upgrade your technology, because if you continue to invest in your business, if your technology leverages our platform, well, you're going to have the best performance and your sales bonuses can continue. Now, most of these contracts with Google and the agencies were just short. Maybe they were 2-year contracts, and every 2 years they would sit down again, set new business objectives, and then keep on going. But recently, Google contacted many of the agencies who were receiving these bonuses and said, the bonuses are going to stop. Now let's step back and try to understand Google's perception of why it was time to do this. Now, I have not spoken to Google executives about this specific podcast topic. This is a topic that, they honestly wouldn't talk to me about for sure, but through remote conversation and ancillary conversations, I've been able to put together some pieces to the puzzle. Number one, the Google spend at automotive retail has hit pretty much a peak. Today, when I look at my dealers, there are not huge swings increase-wise of Google spend. Meaning, if a dealer is spending $10,000 a month in Google advertising, historically, they may have been as high as 20, or maybe they fluctuate between 7 and 15, but for the most part, if a dealer leaves, for example, dealer.com, spending $10,000 a month, and goes to Dealer On and signs up for their program in an OEM managed program, and the dealer spends $10,000, you understand Google isn't getting a net incremental increase. In fact, you could even say that as dealers have looked at their advertising budgets, they are investing more in Facebook over the last 3 to 4 years. That may be at the expense of other less effective advertising strategies, but it could be also that Google spend has been impacted and Google's looking at, hey, what are the total dollars from tier 3. Okay, maybe they're flattening out. I would assume they would be if you think about the massive growth that they would have had since 2000 when they introduced Google Ads. So paying agencies bonus money if they can't really effectively hit aggressive increases in dealer spend, well, makes great business sense. The second thing that is, well, part of Google's decision, in my opinion, is that a number of the agencies serving the automotive industry weren't using these bonus dollars to reinvest in the business. They were just using it to run and survive. Now, why would I say that? Because through conversations that I've had with members of the Google team, I've heard some frustration that some of the largest agencies in automotive were not using the latest capabilities of their API, that their reports, their metrics, their targeting was not fully leveraging all the new features within Google. And of course, Google felt, hey, why am I paying these people money if they can't update their tech to leverage our latest features? Because these latest features are awesome. And of course, we understand why that can happen. If an agency is serving 3, 4, 5, 6,000 dealers and there are some massive changes into the API or massive changes in the reporting, this is a huge cost to redevelop an ad tech platform. And so maybe these companies like, no, we're just going to sit back. The dealers aren't complaining. Yeah, Google's doing some new stuff, but it's not mandatory that we move. Google's wake-up call by telling the majority of the agencies that the bonus system will end or has ended, well, sends a very interesting signal. You see, there has been a race to the bottom in the past 10 years to the cost to manage Google AdWords, or now called Google Ads. When the OEM managed programs came into existence and you had middle managers, and I've written about the pros and cons of middle management companies, it wouldn't be uncommon for an agency to be charging, say, $1,500 to manage Google paid search. These middle managers would come in and say, I want 30% or 40% of that number as a fee to be in the OEM program. And since you're charging everyone $1,500 a month, I want you to charge dealers in the program less. So in the early days of the OEM managed programs, you would have to take your $1,500 a month fee and maybe move it down to $1,300 so the middle manager could go back to the OEM and go back to the dealers and pound their chest and say, look how good I negotiated this deal. So now the agency is charging $1,300. And the middle manager says, hey, you got to give me 30% or 40%. Whoa, okay, now think about that. 30% of $1,300. Now we're at $400. Now the agency who was making $1,500 a month is making less than $1,000. But the caveat was, hey, if you get a lot more business, you'll make it up in Google bonuses. And as a result, many companies built their business model on selling dealers and encouraging dealers and even, well, maybe forcing dealers to spend more in Google so that even though they weren't making any money on the core monthly fee, they would make it up in the Google bonus. Now, there's some other comments that I'd like to make about this model. That dealers really need to understand why they've been frustrated with the quality of paid search management. Now, I want you to think about this carefully. Let's go back to the agency that was making $1,500 a month managing the Google ad spend and now is making less than 900. Before the OEM managed program, before the OEMs got in the middle, most agencies billed the AdWords spend directly on the dealer's credit card. Why? Because they weren't getting any money from Google. They weren't marking up the spend. They were getting $1,500 a month to manage the dealer's ad spend. When you go into the OEM program, the agency has to carry the dealer's spend. Now think about this. In an OEM program where a dealer signs up for paid search and pays, let's just say OEM A, $1,500 a month, and it gets billed on their part statement, the middle manager is going to get a third of that. So the agency gets, let's just rough numbers, 1,000. Well, the agency also has to float the $10,000 a month that the agency is spending. Think about this. The agency has to pay Google typically in 30 days, maybe some of the bigger companies 60 days. But the agency doesn't get paid between 90 and 120 days. Oh, hold on, Brian. Are you telling me that agencies would have to invest $10,000 a month plus all their labor, and so 90 to 120 days, so 4 months later they get paid, and they would have had to float $40,000, $10,000 a month for 4 months? They floated, and then they finally get paid on month one? Absolutely. If you do the math, that's not a great business model, meaning your fee is, you're only getting paid $1,000 a month, but you're floating $10,000 a month. And of course, out of that $1,000 fee, you got to pay your rent and your labor and all your tech fees. But the reason why people went into this is because of the Google bonus. So if the Google bonus was paid on a quarterly basis, and all of a sudden you got an insurgence of cash from Google since you were growing, well, then the math worked out. These agencies could get into the OEM managed program. The middle manager, right, has no risk, zero risk. They just get 30% or 40% of the fee, which is amazing. I think a more reasonable OEM managed fee is 20. But I won't beat that drum any longer because no one cares and no one wants to change. But let's go back. They were willing to give $500 of the $1,500 SEM management fee to the middle manager because if they got the dealers to spend more and more and more each quarter, then even though they weren't making much on the $1,000 per month per store with all their overhead costs, all their profit or the majority of their profits came from the Google bonus. Now, this has been going on for years. And as a result of the bonuses, Google has a very high penetration of dealers who are using Google Ads in their marketing strategy. But now it's topped off. Now, Google's month over month or quarter over quarter increase at tier 3 has to be getting relatively flat. Now, with some exceptions, there's some new ways in which dealers can leverage video, and I think we'll see at NADA this year a number of new products that are video based. But in general, the astronomical growth curve from the year 2000, especially in the first 10 years, has surely flattened considerably. During the heydays, when all of these agencies love to be selling paid search, love to be in these OEM programs, if Google called them up and said, hey, I need you to send 3 people to New York for a meeting, Believe me, the agency says, yes, sir, and sent their 3 people on a plane and spent a day where Google would say, hey, here's our latest tech, and this is where we want you to go. Or, hey, I need you to send 2 people to Detroit, and we're going to do a Google symposium, and we're going to talk about your objectives for the next year. And these costs were like, hey, whatever Google wants, we're going to do. In fact, hey, we need you to do a white paper saying how great Google is. Great, no problem. It's working, and you're paying me hundreds of thousands of dollars in bonuses. Sure, whatever you want, I'm all in. The problem now is that for the majority of players, now there's about a half a dozen agencies, large agencies, that are still, for some period of time, getting the bonuses. But there's a number of people who's have had the rug pulled out from under them. And word on the street is a number of these companies are trying to desperately sell their businesses because without that Google bonus money, their revenue, their P&L looks horrible. And of course, this is the problem with being built on a bonus system that Google has told the agencies could go away at any time, especially at the end of a contract. So what happens now when dealers really need a competent person to run their paid search, and that agency just got a huge financial blow? What happens to Google when Google calls up these agencies who have just had the rug pulled out from under them, and Google says, hey, I need you to send 2 or 3 people to this event? I bet the agencies are going to say, well, hell no. Why would I go? I mean, I'm not making any money directly from you. I got other priorities. I'm trying to save my ship. You see, in the old days, these OEM programs and the fact that the agency has to float the dealer's spend, there is some benefit that, well, the Google money makes up for it. I mean, I was talking to someone just recently, and they said, Brian, the other day, my sales team was so excited. They got a dealer, and they signed up for websites, and they signed up for our digital marketing, and this dealer spends $25,000 a month in paid search. And this person said, I wish they really understood. Here's what it means. Hey, for the $2,000 a month net I get from my website and paid search, because I have to pay $1,000 a month to the middle manager. For $2,000 a month, I have to float $75,000 to $100,000 in money because I get paid in 90 to 120 days. Now, if you went and said to anyone, well, why would you do that? What type of extra money are you making? No, we can't make any money on that. We have to pay Google and we have to hold the money. But you only get $2,000 a month to support their whole website system, their paid search strategy. You got to do sales and marketing and everything out of that too. Yeah, everything. Well, that's a shitty business. Well, this is one of the concerns that I have. I think we're going to see some consolidation in automotive paid search companies. I think at the big level, at the large level, their business model just got changed. Now, smaller agencies are going to be fine. In fact, at PCG Digital, we closed out the year our best year ever. Why? Because we don't participate in OEM programs. I'm not giving 30 to 40% of my market-priced competitive fee to someone who adds no value to the ecosystem. I'd rather be small and profitable than have 30, 40, 50 million dollars in credit line that I'm getting no money for anymore. I'd rather pay my people a better competitive rate so they stay longer and minimize churn so my clients are happier. What we need to really understand is that Google has amazing tools and technology that moves quickly, and they want their agency partners to move quickly as well. The companies that are still getting the bonus money are companies that are reinvesting, taking that money to enhance technology, taking that money to build better support structures and to keep up with Google. That makes complete sense. What doesn't make sense, and this is why I think it's overall good for the industry, is that Google says, I'm going to stop giving money to companies who are not innovating, not giving dealers the best technology, the best outcomes for their ad dollars. Now, a couple other side notes before we close. I recently saw some press releases. Some ex-Googlers opened up a company to allow businesses to buy direct and eliminate the middleman. Of course, I chuckled because car dealers don't want to or have the skills or interest to run their own advertising. There's always going to be a middleman, some technology fee or platform fee, plus, well, the time to build competitive, non-cookie cutter marketing solutions for each dealer. Each dealer is like a snowflake in many cases, very unique. So, what does it mean? I want the dealers who are listening to today's podcast to really think, hey, if the story Brian's telling me is true, then some of the largest companies that I've been relying on are going to have a hard time hiring competent people. They're going to have a harder time reducing churn, which means my multi-million-dollar business is going to be at risk to a constant rotation of account advisors because these companies were built to use and need the bonus money, and the bonus money is going away for the majority of players. What is it going to do long term? I think it's going to force agencies to stay up with Google and build the proper tech. But I also think it's going to mean higher management fees for dealers. Now, I'm already okay with that because, hey, when I hear, this company is willing to manage a dealer's entire paid search and retargeting and display and pre-roll for $800 a month, I'm like, good luck with that. I wouldn't even understand how you could make that pencil. So I think dealers are going to have to stop trusting their multi-million-dollar business to college kids, green behind the ears, who have no knowledge about automotive, but know how to run ads, and that will most likely change jobs every 18 to 24 months and rotate their positions as they move through the companies because it's just unsustainable business at the current levels, which means in order for things to get better, I think dealers are going to have to pay more for competent people to run their paid search. I really think that the OEMs are going to have to rethink how the agencies float the money. It would almost feel better to me to save some of the companies that are doing good job is to go back and let the agencies use the dealer's credit card for their spend or have a direct bill. It just, without this bonus money, it's kind of weird. Why would somebody float millions of dollars in spend with no upside? Meaning Google stopped putting out any bonuses. Why would you float it and be forced to be the lowest price service and have somebody take 30 to 40% of your fee just to be your friend and allow you into the program? I'll be watching this, of course, because this will impact the largest agencies, agencies that are managing, say, 1,000 or thousands of dealers' accounts. It's a big thing. I think that Google has finally realized that they need to be encouraging financially the agencies that are keeping up with tech, that are making ad campaigns run better, and that they're not going to support laziness. They're not going to support campaigns that could be running better, but not because, well, the resources have not been invested to keep tech up. I understand Google. I'm 100% behind Google's decision as a company. Hey, if revenue isn't growing, we're not throwing bonuses. If revenue is growing with a few people because they have advanced tech, they're delivering outstanding value for a limited time, we'll keep on paying bonuses. That makes sense. But for dealers, I'm concerned that when millions of dollars of bonus money get pulled from a company, what does that do to the quality of staff and service from paid search? Only time will tell. I do think that the OEMs have to reconsider renegotiating the percentage that the middle managers take from agencies. It seems way too high, especially now that in the SEM portion, the agencies are required to float millions and millions of dollars with no back end benefit. So maybe it's time that Google's change will precipitate a reevaluation of the financial business model. Everyone has to win. The middle manager has to win, the agency has to win, and more importantly, the dealer should win. And there are times, by the way, that I've told dealers, hey, use your co op funds for something else and don't use a digital approved vendor for your paid search if you're not getting the service and quality. How do I say that? And it's not just self-serving. It's because they have a multi-million-dollar business, multi-million dollars in real estate, in floor plan, in employee costs, and having the lowest cost, highest turnover agency just because it's co-opable doesn't make sense. It doesn't make business sense at all. So let's watch what happens in the days ahead. I give Google credit for being willing to rip the band-aids off and push the industry to use better tech and higher tech, more of the new advanced Google tools. And listen, Google isn't perfect either. Some of the agencies have said, Brian, Google wants me to use all these tools, but I've done head-to-head tests and my tech is better. Okay, that's fair. Google is truly not perfect, and someone could develop better data strategies than Google and have a better end result. Again, if you're not getting money from Google, keep on doing what you're doing for the best interests of the dealer and charge a professional fee that the dealers understand, and the return on ad spend is fine. But this is a massive change. The days of high growth of quarter over quarter Google spend across the entire tier 3, I think, is slowing significantly. Google needs to do it, but it's surely going to shake up the valuations of paid search companies and also the financial stability of companies that were relying on this bonus money. Thanks so much for listening to today's show. Before you get off, I just want to remind you of a few very important things. On February 4th, in West Palm Beach, I'm running a full day Google My Business workshop. You can go to brianpash.com and look at the event section for that. On March 18th, I'm running the Digital Marketing Bootcamp for Fixed Ops. And while there are tremendous workshops and seminars around the country on fixed ops, no one seems to have addressed the marketing opportunities. I have not seen one dealer properly set up their Google My Business and their local marketing strategy for fixed ops. Haven't seen it yet, and I've looked at thousands of dealers' accounts over the years. This is an opportunity to get out March 18th in Fort Lauderdale, and that's you can go there at brianpash.com and look at the events section. Lastly, the 11th annual Digital Marketing Strategies Conference is the who's who in the automotive industry on technology and marketing strategies. So the top dealer groups, the most progressive marketing managers and dealer principals attend. You can go to digitalmarketingstrategies.org to register. We limit the dealer attendees, and it is not an open industry event like the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit each November. So only the sponsors will be there, and the dealers and the top OEM digital managers will be there. This is a great time to get a competitive edge, and that's May 17th, 18th, and 19th in the Napa Valley. If this is the first time you're listening to one of my podcasts, every Monday I release a new podcast. We have a fabulous lineup for the next few months of automotive industry leaders. So stay tuned. Every Monday is a new podcast. You can find the podcast on the iTunes store by looking up the Pash On podcast. But these files are also on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and of course on the native Libsyn syndication platform. Thank you so much for listening, and I'd love your feedback. If you have any comments, just send me an email, brian@brianpash.com. Have a great day.